I've been keeping this a secret for over a year now, but I am finally ready to tell you my debut novel coming out called The Secret World of Briar Rose. We definitely gotta judge the book by its cover, and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in on all the details so you can see it in its full glory. But there's so many other things that we gotta go over. First things first, release date. It's coming out on June 2nd, 2026. I know that sounds like it's gonna be forever from now, but trust me, the time will pass. In the meantime, if you would like this special first edition of my book, I will have the pre-order link in my description, or you can go to my author website, readwithcindy.com. I'll have my pre-order link there and a press kit there if you work in press, and an FAQ section for any logistical questions you might have about the book. If you do decide to pre-order the book, the only thing that I ask of you is to make sure to save the receipt. And that is because we will be sending bonus items for everyone in the US who pre-orders the book and is able to submit proof of purchase. As a frugal girly myself, if you're gonna pay for the pre-order, I want you to get your money's worth. And when I can finally share news about what the bonus items are gonna be for pre-orders, as well as like the audiobook version, any book tour events, and just general book news like that, I also set up an author newsletter so that you can be the first to find out about it. And I'm only gonna update it sporadically, okay? Because I don't wanna clog your inbox with this stuff. The most that you would get would be just one email a month, and probably several months in between of not getting an email at all. I'll post a lot more on my social media though, just to have fun with finally talking about the book, and we can make memes about it together. That pretty much wraps up the logistical parts to get out of the way. And now let's talk about what the hell is this story even about? As you can probably tell from the title, The Secret World of Briar Rose is a queer Sleeping Beauty retelling. You can read the official synopsis on the links that I'm gonna have in my description, but candidly, what I can tell you now while we're, hanging out in this video is this is a story that takes place 100 years after Sleeping Beauty, aka Princess Amelia, has fallen asleep forever due to a curse, which means that the kingdom of Gildan has since been doomed into poverty and invasion, as one might expect from a lawless land and a bunch of neighboring kingdoms that are interested in taking over the land. So the story takes place 100 years later, and things are looking fucking bleak. And we follow Corinne, who is a jaded thief that doesn't believe in the fairy tales that people have been claiming, that the reason why the kingdom has now gone to shit is because some random bitch from 100 years ago pricked her finger on a spindle. Like, be for real here. So she's not really buying any of that, and if anything, she believes that fairy tales are just stories that people tell themselves to feel better about their sad lives. Unfortunately, her younger sister, Ellie, loves these fairy tales. She's sipping the Kool-Aid. She truly believes that Sleeping Beauty was a real person. If she were to only wake up, things would be all good again. And one of the ways that people have tried to find her is by traveling through the underground tunnels that exist below the kingdom. And unfortunately, again, Ellie, being the naive, stupid kid that she is, has run away off into those tunnels to try to find the princess. And Corinne is like, I need to go get my sister because when I find her, I'm gonna kick her ass for being a stupid bitch. So she follows Ellie into these tunnels and goes through these secret passageways and follows the same trail that Ellie did whenever she would leave marks behind to keep track of her direction and where she's been. But what Corinne is very shocked to find out upon following Ellie's trail is the discovery of the ruins of an ancient castle. There have been fairies and a prince who have been living there all this time and have spent so long trying to find a way to open a portal into Princess Amelia's just dreams. Because if you can't wake up a princess from true love's kiss, you gotta try other forms of magic. Like, you gotta start experimenting with this shit. And so finally, after 100 years of working so hard and tirelessly, now is the night that they will open the portal into Amelia's subconscious. But that is also the same night that Corinne has discovered the castle and realizes from the clues that Ellie has left behind that she found a way to get through this portal. So that is the fateful night where the prince is supposed to cross over, but instead Corinne steals his place and seals the entry behind her. So the bulk of this book takes place inside the dream world of this princess. We follow the sisters reuniting for a new adventure as they discover this lush, magical dream world, literally fueled by imagination. They end up meeting Amelia's alter ego inside of the dream world named Briar Rose. And they also meet Malicene, who is the demon that had cursed her to begin with. You're going to be following this group of characters exploring magical ice castles and giant sunflower mazes and oceans that are filled with shooting stars and all of that kind of whimsical bullshit. But the deeper that they go into this dream world, the more that Corinne suspects that Briar Rose or Amelia or whoever the hell this manic pixie dream girl charade is trying to be, she's got to be hiding some darker secrets behind this seemingly perfect paradise. And as we know about dreams, they take from the subconscious. And there are some things that your subconscious can't bury forever. And so that is the general premise of the book. It's also going to have two timelines interspersed throughout the book. So one chapter, you're going to be reading about their adventures in present day when they are discovering the dream world. Then in the next chapter, you're going to be reading about 100 years ago, following Briar Rose when she was Amelia and Malicene, and basically the tea about what's been going down 100 years ago that the fairy tales didn't talk about. And I think what's fun about switching between these timelines is that what takes place 100 years ago influences what you see in the dream world. There's also going to be a big focus on the sister relationship between Corinne and Ellie, as well as the relationships and friendships of the other characters. Obviously, knowing my gay ass, there's going to be a sapphic relationship going on. Now, I can tell you the inspiration behind why I decided to write the story and commit to the grueling act of writing it, because again, if if you've been keeping up with my channel, you know that I am an extremely slow writer. It feels like pulling out teeth, but listen, we finally made it to the finish line. Basically, the story was inspired by a reoccurring thought that I've had since I was 11 years old. And that thought was, I wish I could fall asleep and never wake up. And I didn't realize at the time that this was a passive form of suicidal ideation. When I got older, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and probably the most disruptive issue that I've had throughout my life has been my hypersomnia. It's really bad. Like, people will say that they like to bed rot as a quirky little thing if they like to just be lazy in bed or scroll on the phone or whatever. I take bed rotting to an extreme because I have been stuck in bed and slept for longer than 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. I have missed meetings at work or hanging out with friends. I've skipped meals and showering and using the bathroom and just generally taking care of myself. I think subconsciously my brain and my body knew that if I were to wake up and get out of bed, that means I would have to face my life and my thoughts. And I think deep down, even since I was 11, I think I knew that I just did not want to be conscious anymore, because the point is my brain does not work correctly. And that is why I am taking medication and going to therapy. Throughout the time that I have been trying to navigate my mental health and trying not to myself, there was one day where I had thought about the tale of Sleeping Beauty and how this was a story about a princess who was cursed to sleep forever. And I had thought, what if she had actually wanted to sleep forever? And what if this wasn't a curse, but some kind of respite for depression and grief and shame, because it's too fucking difficult to be awake and deal with reality. So I really liked the idea of her escaping into this whimsical dream world inside of her mind, because I think it's similar to how we turn to fairy tales and stories as an escape from our own reality. And that's been like a huge coping mechanism for me growing up too. Like, I had to turn to fiction so that I wouldn't think about my own life. What also drew me to Sleeping Beauty is this is a story that is often criticized for having a character who has no fucking agency at all. She is passive as hell. She spent the whole fucking story sleeping. I actually wanted to lean into those qualities because I think that when you suffer from depression, you are passive and it's extremely difficult to be brave. Why would you want to save the world when you don't even want to save yourself? I wanted the story to focus on characters who have run away from the world instead of trying to save it. What is it that they're trying to run away from? And how would the consequences of their avoidance catch up to them, even in their own subconscious? Because you can repress the trauma and the shit that you've been through in the back of your mind, but it always comes out one way or another. And what I have learned throughout the years of growing up and being stuck with the brain that I have is that when you avoid things, it's gonna feel good, but it's also gonna prolong your suffering. But I just wanted to have something that is an outlet for what I was going through. And okay, sorry for being a little dramatic over here. The mental illness is slipping out right now. I'm gonna cut the cameras real quick because the sun is leaking through into the darkness of my apartment, and I really do not like how on the nose that type of metaphor is. Let me take a beat and share with you some more information in a sec. All right, sorry, I was being a little dramatique. All this to say, the story is clearly an extension of my interest and what I like to read in books, which means that it also won't be for everyone, and I don't expect it to be. So let me tell you some other things to know about the book, just so that you can figure out if you would be into it or not, or if it's worth picking up for you. The first thing I want to be mindful of is content warnings. Since the book is directly inspired by my depression and suicidal ideation, those themes are featured heavily throughout the book. You could argue that the plot itself is basically suicide. A lot of the interiority of the characters deal with grief and shame and self-loathing. And I wrote this based on what felt true to me. And then when we got into the publishing process of it, we did have sensitivity readers go through the book to make sure that the content was okay. But everyone handles things differently. So if this is a triggering topic for you, then feel free to take breaks while reading or drop reading it entirely or not even pick it up at all. Take care of yourself first, okay? The second thing to know is that even though the main characters are queer, with there being a sapphic relationship, the romance is still a very small part of the story. So don't come into this book thinking that it's gonna be a romantasy. That is like a huge thing that both readers and publishers love to see. And I've even had publishers reject this book because the editors wanted more romance. But making it a romance is just not a priority for the vision that I want for this book. They got too much baggage going on, okay? I'm a romantic at heart too, so I do like the sapphic relationship, but I very much kept it to the backseat, or maybe not even the backseat. It's like in the rear view mirror. So you're going along this journey and you see that little sapphic relationship kind of budding in the background, but it's not like the main point or driver of the story. On the flip side, if you are someone who is super into dense fantasy where there's complex world building and intricate magic systems and twisty political moves across like a mental chessboard, this is not the book for you either. Magic systems, we don't know her. We're running off of vibes, okay? I wrote this book based on what I like to read in fantasy, which is having characters and relationships be at the forefront of the story, and the fantasy and magic part is more of like a backdrop. Like I just wanted to give enough for the sake of pushing the narrative and the themes forward. If you have similar fantasy interests as I do and like to think about the characters and the angst and the relationships, then I think you'll enjoy this book more, even if you're not an avid fantasy reader, because it is like a fantasy light type of book. I think that will also make the book more accessible for you to read. That brings me to my last point, which is that this is a young adult fantasy book, not an adult fantasy book. I think there are still crossover elements given the darker themes, and I think it would still be appealing to adults who like YA. But in terms of the writing style and progression of the story, I just want your expectations to be realistic here that this is YA. This was something that my agent and I went back and forth on when we were trying to figure out how to pitch the book to publishers, and she also felt like it was suitable for both demographics. But ultimately, when it came to narrowing it down, I told her that I think it does suit YA for reasons like it's not a dense fantasy, the writing is not complicated, and also the idea for this whole story was based on the things that I was going through as a young adult. Then, to be even more transparent, I will read to you these short excerpts that I posted on my Instagram a while back. They have changed slightly with edits since then. That way you can see if you are cool with the writing or if it's not your thing. I will share longer excerpts in the future when it's time to do a chapter preview of the book. For now, hopefully this is enough to get an idea of the writing and vibes. So if you fuck with these vibes, that's awesome. And if you don't, now you know and can spare yourself the trouble. But now I want to share with you something that I personally am very excited about, and that is telling you why the publisher behind this book is so awesome and the specific team that we have behind this book is really cool and unique. So a lot of big publisher houses have imprints, which are basically like these subgroups that fall under the bigger parent company. And these imprints typically focus on a particular genre or audience or theme. And that's just like a way, I think, to like better market or organize the type of products that they sell. So the publisher house for this book is Penguin Random House, and the imprint that this book will live under is Kokila. This is an imprint that focuses on historically marginalized stories, even when conservatives try to ban their books. And I will link an article in my description if you want to read an interview with the founder, because since America is regressing into more conservative politics, there have been a lot of book bans going on, and Kokila has to navigate this new territory while still sticking true to their mission. Honestly, my book is probably going to get banned too at some point on account of it being queer and having a demon who's non-binary, and also being written by an author who looks like she's ready to spread the woke agenda at any point. I think a lot of times when publishing uses the word diversity, I think it's just a buzzword. I don't think they really mean this shit. And so when I see people use that kind of language, I always take it with a grain of salt. And so when Kokila had expressed interest in my book and I looked into them, I was surprised to see that not only does every single book that they publish truly come from a marginalized author, but also every single person who works at the imprint, from the founder and president to all of the editors to even the assistants, literally from top to bottom, they are all either women of color or non-binary people of color. I personally had never seen that before in publishing. When we talk about diversity, most people think about it in the context of like authors of color, but not really the gatekeepers who decide which books get sold and which books won't get a chance. They also decide how the book gets marketed, how the book gets edited, and how is the story going to be appealing to the mass audience. And so we make these strides in diverse authors getting published, but it's still only specific types of stories that are evaluated by white gatekeepers for a white audience. And so for me, it was just really cool to see Kokila and be like, oh, you don't just talk the talk, you actually walk the walk. And the bigger gag is that was completely unintentional, but really fucking cool that it ended up being this way, is that the team behind The Secret World of Briar Rose are all South and Southeast Asian women. There's the author, me, I'm Vietnamese. My agent is also Vietnamese. My editor is Pakistani. The cover artist is Filipino. The cover designer is Taiwanese. The interior page designer, who's working on making the inside pages look beautiful for you, she is Black and Pakistani mixed. So I'm looking around and being like, what in the DEI is going on here? This is the future that racists were afraid of. Like, literally me just reading out the names, I fear that people will be quaking in their boots. People are gonna be like, oh my god, brown women taking over? Say it ain't so! Don't worry, snowflakes. This is only one team behind one book among a sea of straightness and whiteness. So there's no need to panic. Also, let's remember, publishing is not a meritocracy. People do not get published only because their writing is good. It's also because of their connections to other people in the industry, or because of their wealth or their education. You know, having the time and space and resources to be able to work on a book and make it good in the first place. Being part of a majority group that's being marketed to, and therefore having an easier time with that story being accepted by the gatekeepers down the pipeline. And then there's also the bitches with a social media platform. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about me. I probably have the dumbest form of privilege by having a YouTube channel where I talk about fairy dick. Like, it's really low-hanging fruit over here. But I think the cool thing about getting into publishing and having a really awesome team like this behind the book is that it makes me feel like if my platform is going to be used for something, my hope is that my privilege can open doors for other people. I think that if this book were to do well or be considered successful by whatever metric that the top leaders are using, then maybe publishing can see that it's worth investing in different types of stories and different people working on these stories. Maybe the next queer writer or Southeast Asian writer can have a fairer chance with getting their foot in the door, and they won't need to sell generic fairy tale retelling number 500,000 or have a dumb YouTube channel where they talk about the girth of fairy dick. Maybe they won't have to do that kind of bullshit because that door can be left open just a little wider for them. One could argue that maybe this is the woke agenda, but I just think it would be really cool if that were the case. That leads me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is my platform moving forward and what to expect from me. What I'm excited about now that this book is officially public is I can start posting monthly publishing process videos for you to get the tea of what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm thinking posting videos like how I got my literary agent, and I'll share the shitty little query letter that I wrote to try to get an agent to, pick me up. I'll make a video about how I got my book deal and how we pitched to different editors and how we got rejected by certain editors because of various reasons. And I'll read out loud the rejections too, because I know you want the tea. But I also think it would be interesting to reflect on that in the context of how the publishing industry works. Obviously, I will also have a video that goes over the cover design process and show the different sketches and iterations that we had leading up to the final cover. I want to do different discussion videos about how I made the characters in my book queer long before I realized I was queer myself, and what it was like for me to kind of navigate that. And most definitely, I will do a roast video for my own book because I just have to, okay? After all of the videos I've made ranting about other books, there's no way I'm not gonna do it for my own. I have spent way too many years looking at this shit, and I've got way too many snarky comments about these stupid fucking characters and the writing. Whatever dragging you can do about this book, bitch, I've already been there. I've been there years before you have been. You wanna be a hate reader? You better get back in the line because I'm gonna be the first one to take a swing at this shit. That brings me to the next thing that I wanna talk about, addressing questions that you probably have at the forefront of your mind. One of them being, will I still make roast videos or rant about books? And the answer to that is, of course. You think I'm gonna read a book about fairies thrusting so hard into each other that they create a massive earthquake and I'm not gonna talk about that? Before I am an author, I am a reader. And before I am a reader, I am a shit poster. I think most of you know that these videos are like tongue-in-cheek, entertainment type of commentary in the same way that like a YouTuber reacts to a very absurd TV show or a movie. For every book that I've ever made a rant video about, these books were already wildly successful. They're bestsellers, they have huge fandoms, and their authors are doing so fucking well that their bag would never be threatened by a random video on the internet. I truly don't think that a rich, white, massively successful author is gonna be crying themselves to sleep because somebody made fairy dick jokes. I promise you, they will be okay. And if any of those authors were dealing with some negative consequences directly from a rant video, they can reach out to me at any time, but I haven't heard shit on account of them probably having actual problems to deal with or being busy with their successful other projects like movie adaptations or worldwide book tours. I think it would be different if I was roasting a bunch of books that were written by authors of color, or if they were like a smaller author whose bag would actually be affected, but I have never done that. And I am of the mindset that when you punch up, it doesn't actually affect the person that is in a totally different playing field, but if you punch down, that would actually be a shitty thing to do. And so that will continue to be the motto moving forward. I know that people can gravitate towards possible drama when they get like even a sniff of it. And so it's easy to conflate things into a bigger situation. But most authors are a lot more professional, especially the ones who have been established for a long time and know how things work. And so that leads me to the next point, which is, will I still make drama videos? I have pretty much only made drama videos where I can tie a specific situation that happened into a broader discussion. That's still the case moving forward because I think that these discussions are really interesting to think about. When a writer is getting caught using AI, I do want to discuss about the bigger issue of why writers feel the need to use AI. And when an author gets caught trying to catfish as another race, I do want to talk about it because first of all, that's fucking wild. But second of all, I want to talk about why people think identities can be used as social leverage. I don't feel the need to comment on everything, especially if I don't know enough or if I just don't care enough about what's going on. But when I do find something interesting for me personally, of course I will want to share it on my channel because it's my own YouTube channel. Another thing that you're probably wondering is, will I still review books? I feel like review is too professional of a word to describe what I've always done, which is sharing my thoughts about a book. That's why I started my YouTube channel and my Goodreads account, because I like tracking what books I read and I like talking about what I thought about the book. So I still plan on doing that. Last year or about 2 years ago, I did stop sharing ratings for books though, because I have realized that people can get very sensitive about that. I see ratings as like an arbitrary arbitrary number. So it's not a big deal for me to leave that out, especially for the sake of people not having an aneurysm over it. I still plan on using my Goodreads account to track what books I read and post my thoughts about it, but I know that some people might view that as some kind of official endorsement or admonishment or whatever. So what I've started doing is basically keeping my reviews either short one-liners or like a dumb joke or whatever, or if I write like a longer review because I have like a lot of thoughts about something, it's just gonna be like stream of consciousness and written very casually. If you follow me on Letterboxd, it is pretty much the same casual style as I write over there. I'm not really concerned about my credibility as a reviewer because I was never a credible reviewer to begin with. I think if I was an actual critic or a journalist, that would be a different ballpark, and then I would understand the conflicts of interest there. But this is literally just a reading diary for me. I don't think that just because I publish a book doesn't mean I'm not allowed to share my opinions on other books ever. I read way more than I write, and most authors, again, are professional enough to know that people can have opinions of their books without holding a grudge over it. And if they are the type of people who will like hold a lifelong grudge over me being like, I was met about this book, then I probably would piss them off some way or another, like knowing me, you know? I know that not everyone might agree with this approach, and I think it will be inevitable that you can take anything that I say and spin it into some kind of drama if you really, really want it to be, but I think it would just be one-sided drama because I don't really prioritize putting my energy into that sort of thing. Like I will literally just post some crap on Goodreads and I'll bounce the fuck off of that janky website, you know? I'm not like checking my notifications or keeping up with it. And so that brings me to like the larger topic of the author-reader space. Am I gonna read reviews for my own books? Am I gonna interact with people who read my books and talk about it? I will not engage with any reviews of my book on those sites because, for one thing, I don't think authors should be stalking reader spaces and collecting chips on their shoulders whenever someone doesn't like their book and like really internalizing that shit, because I can tell when authors do that. And as a reader, that has always annoyed me. So I just don't want to be that type of person. But really the main reason is making sure that my sense of worthiness or validation or assumed morality isn't dependent on what people on the internet think or say about me. I don't want negative or positive reviews to dictate how I should feel about myself as a person. I want to be proud that I wrote a book in the first place and I did the damn thing. Even if nobody else cared about this book, I cared about it. And I want that to be enough for me. Even if the writing isn't perfect or the story is cheesy or it's just shitty all around, it's still shit that I created on my own. So if people don't like this book, that's okay because it wasn't written for you. It was written for the 11-year-old child in me and every other variation of me who wanted to die. And if people do end up liking it or relating to it, then that's a bonus for me. And that would be amazing, but it can't be the core reason of why I should feel proud. If you are excited for the book and if you end up enjoying the story and tagging me on social media, I see that as different than a site like Goodreads or Storygraph or whatever. So I would assume that's an open invite for me to engage or share your reaction and just join in on the fun. I love talking about books, so I feel like it would be fun to talk about my book with, you know, people who are vibing with it, and then we can just make dumb memes about the characters together. On the other hand, if you tag me in a negative post, I will probably just think that you're a weirdo and like ignore it and move on. Navigating the author-reader space is something that I'm definitely gonna continue to figure out and change as I see what works best for me. And I know that not everyone will agree with how I handle things, or if I make a mistake, people will be very quick to assume some moral failing, but it's gonna happen. You know, at the end of the day, all I can really do is just try my best with whatever I know or whatever I think is the right thing to do at the time, and learning how to, you know, go through this new adventure. And so before I end this video, the last thing that I want to say is a big, big, big thank you, because it's not just the fact that having a platform increases your chances of getting published. It's also the fact that as someone who has been on the internet for 8 years, I have seen and experienced a lot of people who are not always kind or have the best intentions. It's an ongoing process for me to make sure that I don't internalize it while I deal with my own shit offline. To have a lot of voices talking down to me or about me in a cruel way on top of like the already cruel things that I say to myself, it's definitely an exercise for me to make sure that I have enough mental fortitude to accept these things will happen and like I will have to be okay with that. But there are times where I don't have that inner strength. And so when I see people genuinely being excited for my book or being supportive of me or extending kindness to me and being willing to be open and understanding of me, it means a lot. Like more than you know. And I know that my mental illness is leaking right now, but I just want to thank you for like being such a fucking real one. Whether you've been a longtime viewer or a silent lurker or you're new here, I really appreciate you just being here in the first place. Okay, my camera died, which I think is basically my camera telling me you're doing too much, girl. You better wrap it up. So again, thank you so much for everything, because the way that you have supported me has helped me navigate my depression and my mental health journey, which in turn shapes the way that I have navigated writing this book, which means that in a way, you have helped create the secret world of Briar Rose. I'm talking about this shit right here. And I can't express my gratitude enough without going into more mentally ill tangents. I hope that you are excited for this book, and I hope that you enjoy this book. I'm excited for the future, and I don't really feel that way very often. Okay, we're being too mentally ill right now. I'm gonna end this video, but I will keep on chatting with you in the comments. Thank you for being a fucking real one. I'll see you real soon. Bye.